Buddy, welcome. Welcome. All right, today is a really special, fun day for Poppy and myself. I'm Marie Freeman, and you're
I'm
Pop.
happy joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've created this thing called Thrive Nation that we really want to share with everybody, and this is the beginning of a platform. So before we begin to share more about it, we're just going to do our prayer, our opening prayer. And it literally is that this platform is only used for the highest and best light to come pouring through. Only the highest and best truth is allowed through and out and into the airwaves. And we open, we welcome, and we allow that only the highest and best comes through on whatever's discussed today, so that it can be as as pure as we can deliver and allow. And all of this is for all of us. We're getting so much as it comes through us and from us, from our human experience. So may only the highest and best take place today in this discussion. Poppy, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you can add your piece.
Yeah. So Marie and I met quite a while ago, well, a few years ago. It was synchronistic, and we knew that we would have something to do with each other in the future, but at that time didn't really know what that was. And just felt sisterly, very sisterly, right from the get-go. And we met in physical presence, had beautiful walk and some lovely nature synchronicities along the way, beautiful, open, trusting conversations that I found that my heart just was open to Marie, and that the conversation and everything was held very sacredly. And I'm someone who, well, I've tried to trust people quite naively, and that hasn't worked, but this was very comfortable. This was very natural. And I have had substantial satanic ritual abuse in my life. And I had been trying to work with that and sort that. And it was all going wrong. Actually, it was in the wrong hands, it was in the wrong place, and I was getting into quite an emergency situation in my life because I had these massive memories trapped in my bodies, trapped in my cellular memory, that had no safe place to be to come to the light, to be seen and resolved. Look, I just feel I have to say it because I keep seeing it on the screen. So I've got quite a swollen face today. Marie and I have been working since the 31st of October, which is Halloween last year. Interesting that we started on Halloween, a great big satanic day. And we started using Marie's, she uses the journey, and I'm really familiar with the journey because when I was a retreat facilitator able to give to others, this was one of the number one modalities that I used. And then I was not doing well at all. I was really, really struggling. My health was really dangerous. I had been really beat up in another, it was almost, yeah, in another scenario, and unable to resolve anything. And I just a few times I called out to Marie, and Marie said, look, I can help you. And I couldn't really hear it beginning. And then there was this time, and I was really desperate and really not coping. And I called Marie and let her know. Marie just, she had a gaze. She looked at me and she said, Poppy, I can help you. And I was caught in that gaze in that moment. And that was the moment I got a full guidance. Yes, yes. And so we started to do the journey therapy. And oh my gosh, I was aware of memories, not all of them, only a few compared to what I know now. But I was aware of some memories before that started, more in the senses to do, because sight, sound, smells, triggers, things like that. But going into the journey process, we see it. I see it in such a deeper layer. There's conversations. There's this sacred fire, stillness, where things get disclosed, things get showing up, memories get come up, and I'm safely held with the process, and Marie's facilitation of the process is vital. I just couldn't recommend her more highly. In fact, I'm really, really happy that other survivors are going to her through my recommendations at the moment. And also,
We showed up to be here to do this, so come on.
yes, we did. And so joy is coming back into my life. I've been left with quite a few serious injuries that were treated really recklessly with the medical establishment and the mental health establishment. There has been some good pockets within that too, which I want to acknowledge. But largely it was a highly, highly dangerous. My life was highly vulnerable. I've had to disclose big people, call them out, and they are in interviews and other podcasts with our beautiful Emma Catherine, who's interviewed us both. The Imagination, which also helped to launch me and get me out there. So I'm just immensely grateful that that through the exposure and light of truth, I am finding myself becoming free of all of this density of the darkness that covered my authentic self. So I'm finding the joy that I always was is starting to come, and the magical child that I was is coming forth. Yeah, I'm still getting through injuries step by step by step by step. I don't know how many journeys we've had, maybe about 20. I really don't know.
I think it's like 17 or something now. I'm not sure, but what I was wanting to convey to other people as well is that we're in a time of polarity, and so this is an auspicious time on earth, a time of revelation. So as we heal, as we heal a humanity, as we heal by doing the individual work, as we go inside and find out that we have been suppressed, that the cells have been covered and they have been suppressed legitimately by programming, with a lot of satanic ritual abuse, but also from conditioning, which stems from those in society that have put these programs into the most natural of living experience through our TV, through our radio, through our schools, through our medical, through our just conditioning of passing down through the generations of behavior. Children should be seen and not heard, and all these sorts of things that get passed on. You build your own control. Your mind is controlling yourself, your personality, your child. You stop playing, you stop being loud and fun and vivacious and
Self.
and what's that word that you stop being natural, you stop being spontaneous, you behave, and the behavior has come from within to suppress us, and from without, it's from outside us. So this time, Poppy and I have stood up to say, hey, you know what, there's everybody in the whole world's doing their part in just living and getting free from the frequencies and the vibrations that have actually held our body down and kept our light blocked, stopped, contracted. So there's really only contraction and expansion. That's the two ways of the universe and the earth and the nature, is that you're either open or you're closed. And with the nature of our bodies, like what you're discovering, Poppy, is that you're beginning to pull off covers that were cloaking, and not just cloaking your chakra centers, your energy centers, your light. The biggest one has been the aversion to using religion and even I was going to say agnostic, but it's those that are anti-religion. When you close your crown chakra to religion, you're actually really closing it to source. So that's like taking the life force and saying, no, thank you. I'm going to resist it because it's got dogma. It's related to a religion, and I don't want to play in that. But actually, you're cleverly being disconnected from the source light energy that comes down and through your body. So, Poppy, how's your body? So what I want to say is there's going to be this polarity of days where you're feeling expanded and contracted. Everybody's in this flux of energy. The whole planet, the whole cosmos is kind of in this inward, outward transformation, where we're shifting, and that's taking off. It's real quantum physics. It's taking off one way of being, and it's making the cells of the body and the DNA and the way that morphs into a shape turn into a different way of being, a more of a being that's more able to hold the capacity of your full light that's shining and beaming in through you. So there's a natural purge that was going to be happening anyway, through whatever they call ascension. It just means evolution, that it's inevitable that we're going to evolve through the frequencies. And I was just having a little moment to discuss this morning about how come we're getting all those light codes come in that come more powerfully through a body that's getting clear, and releasing all these old pains. It's getting more of the light capacity. Think of yourself as a volt. The voltmeter is a lot higher now than it was previously to having all these shutdowns, because the sun itself has moved through the photonic belt, or this galaxy has moved through a photonic belt and sort of into a clearing. And the clearing is that there's less debris. Earth was kind of in a, if you can think of it in space, it was included in sort of space debris.
Broken up planets.
Those photonic belts, think of it like just grit. And so when we get into a space where there's no grit in those belts of the cosmos, and we come into free space, we're out of the photonic belt, and therefore the sun is actually solar powered at maximus, meaning that it was always at maximus, but while we were in a photonic belt, the earth was getting debris, was breaking up those light codes that would come down to hit the earth. So you see rings around Saturn and different other planets. Those are sort of that debris, gaseous, even in the cosmos, it would be something like broken up planets, and it's just space debris that can make up the photonic belt. So we're in a real clearing.
And what I see is
that comes through
is that broken up bits, they actually hold the energy of a former war, and so we're remembering. But I just wanted to say before, now, because of my studies with the Mayan calendar, and also there was religious abuse in my life, so that closed me down to religion, but I was never closed down to source. And what happened was that I actually made a discovery that the light codes that come through the sun come directly from source.
Yep.
That so, and in the Mayan calendar, the Maya keep those memories and those energies, and so through the Mayan calendar, I was absolutely connecting, but not being able to really access through the, like, physically, because there's been so much obstruction in my neck, my head, my throat. And this was stuff that was covered over my connection with source, to try to remove me from source above and below. That's
Well,
what
this
they.
is the debris. This is like having that
Yeah.
photonic debris in your, because we're all space, right? We're all energy. So as above, so below in the sense, because whatever's occurring out in the cosmos with coming through a photonic belt and leaving that debris, we get a natural purge wanting to occur,
Yeah.
because we want to mirror what's occurring in nature. We're so we start to let go of the what's the matter, it's in our matter. What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? Oh, I feel this, I feel that. You do feel it. You feel it right down to your cells, because your cells are holding grit,
And
you
they
know.
are matter.
Yeah.
Matter,
But
they make the same stuff as the mother.
yeah, and with removing the grit, the past, because we move slower than the cosmos is already through, our planet is already through the photonic belt into lovely clear space. It takes a bit of time for then those on Earth to do the clearing to match that
Yeah.
reality, that now that the solar maximus is available to hit the planet, it can hit the vessel that we live in this dense, slow vibrating matter that's appeared as my body, and any darker, heavier, lodged matter that is materialized as a dis-ease, as a contracted area, and right down to veins and cell receptors, any shutdown. So it's amazing what's beginning to happen with that sun. Do you want to talk about the sun, and then we'll talk about more of what we came to talk about? The
Yeah.
energy of the sun.
Yeah. Well, the sun is sending light codes to us all the time. And these and this is what I discovered, is that there's a big confusion over the word time. So the calendars are always connected to time, but these codes are frequencies. So you could call it a frequency time, but here on Earth, we're actually trapped in a false kind of time that has been psychologically created. And this is, like clock time.
Like a
Okay.
loop.
Yeah, and it loops and loops and loops. And if you look at it, it's connected to Saturn, it's connected to Cronus. So there's big histories of what we evolved through. And there was a time when we didn't even have a written word. That's magic. The writ in word, which create, and they use rituals to make legislation go. So this is to do with the false time matrix, where we're quite stuck. But then when we go up and we're connected to source, to me, through the sun, we become one. We pull ourselves together and we become the one. And that is timelessness beyond in there. So when
That's
we
the
go
now, right?
yes, well,
now.
we could call it the now, but when we go into we can access this by connecting with source, and we actually always are. And this is why we can, in an instant, we know exactly what to do, because we get that timeless guidance. Because in that place, it's presence, but in presence we can go behind ourselves and make a way for ourselves. Or no, we could go behind ourselves and repair the damage that might have happened, but we can also go ahead of ourselves and make a way for ourselves. Like, people often, they'll experience what we'll call deja vu,
Deja vu.
or glitches in the matrix and things like that. And often we'll go, this is so familiar, I've been here before. Yes, you have actually. You went there, you went there to prepare yourself for something. It's almost like there's this
Because there's a fluidity, right? There's a fluidity. It's not static.
yeah,
It's not locked down. And the time that the people that have built in a static time frame, it is so false, because everybody can relate to that deja vu. They can, and instead of calling it weird or magical, it's
yeah,
actually natural, because what we're learning is the nature of everything is so fluid.
yeah. And it's
So
very
fluid.
rigid and harsh in the lower realms that are governed by the Saturnian principle, which the Masonics have kind of adopted through the Cronus god, who was the god who ate his children, and that Satanism came out of. So
Yeah,
a
we're
lot of
going all over the
research
place,
on
guys.
this.
Keep up, it's exciting. Yeah.
I've done a lot of research on that, but that is the containment. They want to put us in the box. And it's actually the cube. It's like that black cube at Mecca. We get contained in a box. Our psychicness, our psyche, and that's where we get caught. And so when we are absolutely connected through the sun to divine source and an equal connection to the mother, who is also, she's the creation, like he seeds the time, the father, his energies are like seeds. They come through the sun, and those seeds can connect with us, and then they might find a fertile space, and we grow, and we keep growing with the earth. So we're with her, and that's the matter, the mother. And
Materializing.
yes,
Yeah.
so
Poppy,
material.
1 second. You went like that. Hi guys, little old technical
Oh,
thing.
lower.
Yeah, thanks. Cool. Carry on. Yeah, so well, today is the beginning of many discussions, and as we talk, as we share, as we open our throat chakra, like I say, the prayer went out for the highest and best to come through. So we're not judging any of this. Come along for the ride, enjoy the conversation. Everybody's going to have their own beliefs and takes on it. So we're not, there's no convincing or teaching. We're just knowing thyself. We're knowing thyself by
Yeah,
talking, and women particularly, we love to talk, because that's how we figure things out and we make sense.
yeah.
And
And we've
so
all had, everyone's had a different history, everyone's had a different place. We found different things that work for us. Even Marie and I, we have different belief systems, and we don't just only accept, well, let's
yeah,
discover, let's walk.
no, that's the beauty of individuality.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no knowing. There's no knowing. There's only resonance. Does this resonate? Yes. Does this resonate? No. So there's
As a
no knowing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But beautiful. So today you had a topic in mind, Poppy.
Yeah, thank you. Because of the energies that are actually coming through the sun at the moment, they are we're in what's called a night wave in 7 water, and this is the energy of offering and forgiving. And so the Maya they would have fire, so it's to do with the fire, but it's also to do with the purification and the cleansing in the blood, and being able to go to these fires of forgiveness in at a place of forgiveness. And it takes a lot of work to actually get to that place of forgiveness. And I think there's been so many misconceptions over what forgiveness is, that it's actually really worth talking about it.
It's been a buzzword. It's been a new age kind of word that people use, but there's a difference between knowing the word, having knowledge of the word forgiveness, and then there's the action of it. So we wanted to really talk about it today, Poppy, about what
Yeah,
when you why you would want to do it, because it is a key in my opinion. It's a key, and it's a key that we use in the journey to go from, like I say, one state of holding. There's Brandon Bays, and this is how Brandon Bays actually dropped her massive basketball-sized uterine tumor out of her body was this key, forgiveness. So she'd actually had this big tumor growing, and had done a lot of therapy about her life and her trauma, and actually child abuse, child violence. And so as she grew, she thought she had forgiven, right? Because that's what the counselors and the therapists discussed. And up to that point, she'd done forgiveness to a level that she had thought she had. And actually, the key in the book, if you read the book, and you can get a free download off my Facebook or off the Journey website, the key was for her forgiveness, Poppy, if you remember, wasn't forgiving abusers, forgiving behaviors of abusers, was actually forgiving herself for believing it. So,
Uh,
so, she'd been having a dialogue with the tumor. She went into the tumor because she had a life and death situation. It was like, if I don't save myself now, I'm going to lose my life. So with that kind of push comes to shove energy, she was like, oh my God, tumor, okay, what are you here for? What do you want to tell me? So that's how the journey was birthed, is she quietly surrendered into not knowing, and then the mind and the body formulated her past, and they showed her pictures, they gave her words, and soul came into the picture with wisdom, and it was all starting to make like pennies were dropping, and she was like, wait, hold on a minute, what? So what I did was, I thought I'd forgiven as much as I could perpetrators and family members and people that have done harm to this body that was wrapped up in the tumor growth over her life. But when she went deeper, and the body was throwing up pictures of an inner child, and it was throwing up pictures of the wounded child, okay? And again, New Age has bandied those terms around. But you think about it, this is an adult body. Once upon a time, it wasn't an adult body. It was a child body. It was a baby. So the baby, the child, the adult has grown up inside me. It's literally still inside me. And so whatever I was holding from all of that time is still inside me. That's why it stays there. And so with Brandon's piece being added to how come I got to heal, and how come I am now sharing it and helping others come to the key of forgiveness and use it as a key, not just as a lip service therapy or counseling, but actually a going inside to the cells and finding the wounded inner child and listening. So we're not thinking, oh, that was probably due to my abuse, and I probably should, and I think I should forgive my father or forgive, whatever. There's no thinking involved. We're going into the body. We're listening to that baby girl because she is still here. Okay, the past, it's sort of still here till we let go the past, and that informs, influences, and shapes our behavior and shapes our personality. So we're kind of a conglomeration of the past and all of the cells of the child and all the children. And that's why you'll come to recognize you've got many parts. You're like, oh, there's a part of me that likes that person, but there's another part of me that doesn't like that person. Or there's a part of me that's ready to forgive, and there's a part of me that will never forgive. And so these are the different stages of the child development that is arrested in the body. And the journey will help you to have a beautiful campfire where we're going to say what parts are going to come up. And what Brandon found is this part, and this is really integral for every one of us to recognize that there is a part of us in any childhood trauma that blames itself. It's just natural. It's like, this is happening in my world, and the mind goes, well, it must be, I must have done something to deserve it, to cause it, to bring that behavior towards me? What did I do wrong? And you can search and go crazy looking for that. What did I do? What did I do? Was it when I was mean? Was it when I said that? Was it when I didn't show enough love? Was it? And you can go crazy searching for it. But if you listen to the body, it begins to reveal and you go, show me. And so this wonderful mind, it's like a video recorder, eh, Poppy? Like
Yes.
you, and actually there was a therapy called the Mayan timeline therapy, and it was recasting. It had a line. It was very big in the 80s, and you'd put yourself in the now, and you would write down and point into significant traumas in your life growing up, and then you could actually walk the line back. So it's kind of a recasting the past to go back, and it was called the Mayan timeline.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah. And anyway, so this knowledge that this wonderful video recorder that has recorded your entire past has put it in the
Yeah.
hard drive. That's in the hard drive on the cells of
In
the
the
body,
matter.
the experience. And you've got the mind, which is kind of like Zoom. You've got the audio and you've got the video, and then you've got the hard drive. It's all here. So we're going in.
The soul is the difference.
Yeah, we do.
Can be replicated by AI,
That's right.
but
Yeah.
not where the soul is concerned.
No, and the soul will give you the true wisdom parts, a piece of it. So Brandon went into her body. She went into the tumor. She went into then a campfire naturally, spontaneously with this younger child, and the younger child was espousing, I'm to blame. It's my fault that my father would treat me like that. I did something wrong. I must have. And it really couldn't pinpoint that it had. It just thought it had. She thought she had. So this child had blamed herself her whole life. And if you think of bread and you think of a piece of mold on bread, it starts as one spore.
Yeah.
And then that grows, right? Because it will just if it hasn't been removed, if you don't remove the spore, it just thrives in that condition of warmth and it's being fed, and everything's making it grow. So what she did, thankfully for all of us, is she got in touch with, and it's not even her process, it's an ancient process that kind of we all tribes would have known about, and shamans know about, and different other cultures practice this kind of relationship and dialogue with the inner child to come to the present moment where you drop your past, you drop the matter holding on to the past, and then the light can just be operating the now you, the present day you. So what happened is Brandon had a little conversation, and we do it in the journey where we're listening. The younger you is talking. We're listening from the present day you, the younger you, and we're dialoguing until this younger you has got it all off her chest, where she did blame herself and she did harbor resentments and pains and disbelief and shock and unworthiness and all manner of emotions, to a point where she'd said it all at the campfire, and now she felt kind of, she got it off her chest, and she admitted that she had blamed herself. And then that's it. It's like the bottom of the knowing of how this tumor came about. It was like, it came from that little spore, that little piece that started to grow, and you kept feeding it over your life. It was my fault. It's probably my fault. I'm not good enough, and I'm not worthy enough for my father's love, and because of my own behavior, I'm just flawed and I'm not good enough, so I'm going to be treated badly because I deserve it. You keep feeding it and feeding it and feeding it, and then you grow. The tissues have got no choice in your body. The tissues grow because you're feeding it. You're feeding it now with a distortion of truth. It's not a truth. It's a distortion of the truth, but you're believing it, so you're feeding energy to it. And when you bring energy to something, it will solidify into matter. It will materialize, and
Yeah,
that's what all of our blockages and right down into the plaque in our blood and our capillaries and everything that has materialized has come from a distortion of truth somehow, whether it's what we're eating, what we're drinking, what we're thinking, and what we're feeling. Don't you agree?
I absolutely agree. And it goes into huge spaces. So all of us, every single human being here, we are actually materializing with the earth consciously or unconsciously. So
That's
at
what
we
we see out there now, is everything that we've unconsciously and consciously kind of materialized right around
yeah,
us from our
absolutely.
thoughts, our distorted thoughts too.
Yeah, and that's right. And that's, when we look at, we've got all sorts happening on this earth, we've got containments, and this is the trauma and everything that still isn't resolved within humanity. And so for each one of us to resolve that trauma, and it's big work, it's really, really big work, especially, look, SRA is, to me, I mean, I can't think of anything worse, and it's happened in my life. And to look at it and to access that, I've had to have support for this, really. So it's strong programming. So SRA, it's an extreme, so it can actually show up how strong that programming is, but that programming happens on different levels for different people depending on the traumas. Everyone's been traumatized over these last few years. The whole world has been traumatized in different ways. There's been various psychological operations going on, which actually fit with that smashing up of that belt, isn't it? That we've got all these memory and remnants all trickling through, we're connecting with, because we are actually connected to everyone and everything. And so they're doing this incredible hard work of becoming conscious about what the body is saying, because the body is a biofeedback. It's absolutely, it just does not lie. The body is true. And so often, because of all the conditioning that we've had about the medical system, people will say things like, when you get cancer, oh, your body's betraying you. Well, actually, it's not. It's showing you. It's
Yeah,
showing you what you cannot see. and
yeah.
I've had all kinds of crazy weird type cancer stuff, like it, very extensively through my body, and this swelling is connected to do with arthritis and disc bulging and damage that was in the back of my neck, particularly where it was most damaged in rituals. And so the only way through for me is to expose the light, find out what is my body saying. And my body has been incredibly loyal to me and showing me what happened.
Because it recorded the truth. That's what I mean. When you
Yeah.
have this experience is the record button. It says, wow, I'm showing up, and with all my senses, I'm recording into the mind, into the body. The mind and the body are one.
Mm.
That is where the cell records the information, because the cell, being mostly water, is the recorder. It's actually the water that's recording, isn't it?
It
And the
is.
energy, it's the light and the water. So that is the recording instrument, and we're made of that. So that we're the tape recorder, and the light and the water are the film. They're the film.
Yeah.
So going into the journey, okay, for Brandon, the exciting part was when she dialogued, and the inner child finally went, oh my gosh, I've admitted that I thought I was to blame. Then the present day her and was able to say, that no, the child isn't to blame. Like, so the rational, logical part and the truth of a grown up is able to look back. Not everybody, right? Because sometimes we're so distorted that the grown up mind is still holding a blame, self blame. So it's a little bit of a dance in the journey to find your highest part of yourself and talk to the younger you. Sometimes it's the present day you that is actually angry and says, yeah, you blamed yourself, and then it's really ruined my life because I've had low self-esteem and I've had ill health, and there is this anger that can naturally come because you feel like, because you, the younger you, got arrested at an early age and believed something of a lowly truth, a lowly vibration and frequency, and then shaped my personality. This is why the majority of people feel like they haven't reached their potential. There's like more to me, and I just can't access that more, and it's because the shutdowns that happen at the ages of development that shape your confidence, that shape your health, that put in place these growths and fatty tissue and cancers and things that just keep growing because we're feeding them. We're in that loop. We're in that mind loop of continually running over the past, and it's kind of like stabbing ourselves with the same pains over and over and over again, that we run through scenarios that we can't change. It's the past now. But with a journey, and what Poppy was saying about true time, is you can sort of time travel. You can
Yes.
actually sort of go back into the body, right back into like a folder system, of like opening up a folder in your mind, pull out the folder, the file, take a look at it. The mind will show you pictures. It'll have a video and it'll have a tape. It's just like investigator work, like like, yeah,
Investigations.
you become the private investigator that goes in and look and goes back into the archives, right? You're going back and you're going, 1971, I'm going to undo that because this child is about that age. And so what do you got to tell me? What do you got to show me? What do you got to teach me about the experience you had? And then with that sort of time travel, we go back there with her. We feel it. You are feeling it, eh, Poppy? Sometimes the pain is
Oh,
moving
yeah.
around your body and you're like, sometimes I can't hardly speak, because it takes me right back into the contraction of when my throat chakra was
Mm,
closing and narrowing. And so
yeah.
it's a real experiential, like,
Yeah.
relationship. The body's on board, it's giving you the sensations, and it can be
Mm,
traumatic in the sense that you're feeling it, but you're not reliving you're not reliving trauma to the point where you're giving yourself more trauma. You're actually only recasting it. You're looking at
yeah.
the trauma
It's
that exists.
resolution
Yeah, the residual. Yeah.
or
Uh,
resolution.
true.
Mm,
So the excitement for Brandon was that the dialogue happened, that she came to peace of mind. And that word there, peace of mind, that's what that means. It means you get down to the core, the bottom, before all the disrest, the discomfort, the unease, the dis-ease, everything's put on top of peace and light and love. Like, these are not new age terms. We know the quantum light, we know the the reality that we have infinite and unconditional love that comes through that connection from source. It's a frequency of love. It's high frequency. So love and peace exists in our body, in our chakras, and in our cells. And each and every single cell is full of light, is full of love, is full of peace. And so everything else just got put on top, didn't it? Until it disrupted the function of the cells, the function of our energy pathways, to
mm.
create a blockage, a blockage. Um,
And the blockages, I mean, for me, the blockages got so big and everything got so that I would have died if I couldn't have handled it. And
Function of the body couldn't continue, right?
yeah, so like over the last few years, I've had extreme pain at different times, but I haven't, I don't know what it's like to be free of a headache because I've had one for years, and I've got sounds that go in here because of the injuries and everything. So, my body has been really, really, really trying to get my attention, but I just wasn't able to find that place
It's
until
the
it's
how.
so ironic
It's
because
the
I
how
actually
part.
knew, yeah, it was because for me, there was so much programming in there too that I wouldn't even find that safe person. I couldn't have connection. I couldn't have love, shelter, even my nutrients absorbed. There was a heavy, heavy, heavy programming, MK Ultra programming put on me by the Masons. And so my body was actually doing that to the point where I just felt like I was almost um, exploding with the pain. And so this has been, and it's forgiveness. It's like
Yeah.
everything, because a beautiful woman, Rachel Vaughan, she's an SRA survivor from Australia. I just caught her in an interview, and what she said was, never, never say anything bad about yourself, never. And I think, I was saying it's my fault, I'm wrong, I'm bad, people don't like me, all of these things that had been, that it's all my fault, I'm evil. I had all of these things inside that were put, that were happened through all of this abuse. And then as I gone into that abuse and I found out how the programs got put in there, and sometimes it's like absolutely atrocious, being killed, being brought back to life, being told to submit, being used, all these things. That's massive programming, absolutely massive programming. So to find
You're
that
amazing.
and uncover that, work with that, talk to the perpetrators, and sometimes the perpetrators were actually Baphomet was one of them, Baphomet, sorry, and Lucifer. So I would actually have conversations in these processes with those forces to the point that I could get to the stage where I forgive. And when I forgive, I'm free, and they can't actually muck with me anymore. They can't have that power over me anymore. And that is the most profound part of the forgiveness.
Yeah. And let's take it back
Mm.
a step, because you touched on um so the programming that comes in, you're just in survival, really, aren't you? And
Yep.
you're just the body doesn't have enough life force to function because it's getting shut down, shut down, shut down, blocked up, blocked up.
I'm
You're getting,
commanding. I was
yeah,
commanding by the
your
things.
beliefs.
Yeah.
I call it like the mud, don't I, Poppy? I'm saying like
Mm.
your thoughts can create muddy. It's not clarity, right? It's not truth and love. It's muddy, it's gray, and so that then materializes to further harm and give your body dis-ease because you're not at ease. But the thing that I can hear from a lot of people listening right now is what happens is when the wounded child is in such a state, and just you don't have to have SRA to understand this, that every single child has had some sort of traumatic experience growing up. One of the ladies that went through the journey that had 3 brain tumors that were diagnosed as inoperable. Well, in the same weekend I did my thyroid, she went in and dialogued and found out that the base of her trauma, that little piece of, think of it, that little piece of mold on bread, started by a very traumatic event, and it was that event that started the mold on bread that grew into 3 inoperable brain tumors, was that a person in her classroom stole her pencil.
Yeah.
Okay, but then you have to adjust your thoughts about the world. You have to adjust your thoughts about people. And so this coming into this teaching about forgiveness is that what's happened through anybody's trauma and anybody's feeding of that trauma and reliving those events where now I can't trust anybody. Now I don't believe in good people. Now you're just adding more mud into this energy body. And it really solidifies and blocks and slows and gives you sluggish metabolism and sluggish lymphatic system, and everything starts to slow down and really solidify to the point of showing up as lumps and bumps and blockages and stuff like that. But the piece of what we're doing is armoring. Why? Because now we need to defend ourselves, protect ourselves from the world because it hurts. Being an open, divine, magical child, it's dangerous. You know, I'm going to get hurt. So, on the one hand, we have trauma that's blocking us up, but we can have a secondary gain from that trauma. It kind of protects us, kind of buffers us, can kind of like cloak us a little bit. It becomes familiar. You know, like if I was to go and release all that, then I'd be vulnerable again. I could get hurt again, right? So there's that. There is this, oh, you know, you should help yourself and you should go, and people are giving wonderful advice, and you're like, yes, that's great conscious advice, but the subconscious child is like, that would make me quite vulnerable, you know, that would make me, you know, like you got to have a real kind of conflict inside to the part of you that's going to help you go get healing, and the part of you that would just leave it alone, just leave it there. It's, I don't want to open myself up. I don't want to open up these wounds. I don't want to, but that's a self-sabotage, which is also a program that can be really severely fucked with.
Oh,
And
yeah, when you're told to shut up, when you're told, oh, that didn't happen to you. No, that's not like how it is, over and over and over.
keeps you covered, it keeps you covered.
Yeah. But we also, but when that's there, it's the belief that it magnetizes more of that too, isn't it?
Well, that actually is. So two things can happen. One, you do actually magnetize. So you're a magnetic field, and so you do actually vibrate and emit resonance and a transmission. And so you do actually, things are attracted to that similar frequency. So that's why when you're in a heavy state of lower frequency or lower vibrations, I should say, you are potentially attracting more because you do become a magnet. But you can override this. This is the thing. So there's a lot happening on the third dimension, which is you're attracting what you are and what you're holding on to. When you let that go, then you attract less of that stuff, you know, like I'm talking about, you know, bad behavior towards you, or low finances, or lack of love because you believe I'm unworthy of love, or I'm poor and I'm broke, or
Yeah, or
I've been abused,
serious and dangerous
yeah,
things.
I deserve abuse and all that kind of things. Yeah. So this armoring, I really want to get to a lot of our beautiful masculines. They are so wonderful, these beautiful men in our world right now. And because of their past lives or parallel experiences, and even in their own DNA, they will have ancestors who have had to use defense as a mechanism, protection as a mechanism, not just for themselves, but for their family. And they have been the warring soldiers, you know, that have had to go to war, that have gone to battle, that have had to fight. And what they needed was a shield. They needed an armor to literally stop their brain from getting split open by a sword, you know. So there's a familiarity in a lot of our masculine. I don't even just mean the men, I mean the masculine in us, that is there to protect, defend, and armor and buffer and shield and all this kind of thing. But
Mm.
with a wonderful shield, with a wonderful armor, and what I discovered when I had my iron levels, um, well,
Depleting.
we could talk about vampires and demons another time.
We
But
will.
when your inner program and your outer entities are siphoning your energy and they're taking the life force out of your very blood, they're taking the iron levels. The iron is a natural defense to ill health, to the cell is now, think of the cell as an island, and the iron and all these sort of hemoglobins and all this like lovely stuff, it protects the cell's vitality, right? It gives you good health and good vitality and good circulation and blood flow from your heart, which is where the love, really comes to the body, to the cells. It comes from the source and it comes into the body, and the
I like
heart center
that.
distributes it very well. And
Mm.
so with the beautiful masculines, I love you and I see you, and I'm hoping that your heart is open to hear from these beautiful feminines that are here, that have been through the process of forgiveness, to have to discover. I mean, Poppy, you can speak right now about how much armoring
Yeah.
and defense and protection have you had, to protect you. And then I want to talk about what happens after we've let that down. So what did you
Yeah.
need to protect yourself?
Well,
What was your
actually,
belief?
like one of the main protections I had, well, I thought it was my protection. Um, so when I was 2, the ritual involved the murdering of a pregnant woman, having her baby cut out, and her spirit, which was absolutely terrorized and traumatized, came into my body. And so from the age of 2, it was familiar.
It was sent into her body, by the
It was
way,
it
in the
was sent.
ritual.
Yes, it was sent into my body, and it was like it just came up to me in my psyche. The words I got was she was like a dark mother energy, and she was the one that screamed at people, but it always ended up sabotaging me because it wasn't clear.
Which was programmed
But
on
but
purpose.
can you imagine this woman losing her life, and the last thing she knows is don't do this to me, and that was in me all my life. So my defenses were huge, absolutely huge, and they felt right to me, but it wasn't even my energy. And so
There was
this was,
two souls living in your body, right?
yes, there was. And why, when life was better, I could keep that part down. But then as the illnesses and the sicknesses and everything started to come in, she was sort of getting stronger and coming up to the surface like that, because it was actually the terror of SRA. And so I was not even able to really put down my armor until I could resolve um, the life of her baby, me, how we were all 3 different beings. So yeah, I was really on raging and on a rampage, and I was out there and activate, trying to do everything I could, but I was just getting knocked down and thrown down and bashed down and attracting more of the same and isolating,
Yeah.
getting more and more isolated. Um,
So you can see how the container of
mm,
Poppy, the body, the shell, the cells, has now got this mother that is distraught, that is terrorized, and so the two souls are trying to live off the one body, which is going to deplete Poppy's own health, because you can't have 2 souls draining the energy off one light source that's there designed for one body. So when
mm.
when you did the ritual, Poppy, and you were able to separate that mother out,
No, you mean
um,
the journey? Sorry.
sorry,
You said,
when you did the the journey about the ritual, and you were able to separate her out and you let her go to source, now you've got one body and one soul back again.
Yeah.
But
An
so
incredible, you know, and
so
also I had to forgive the murderers, and yeah.
yeah, and I must say again to our beautiful masculine energies, male or female, that are listening, the key to how do you forgive part. This is what we've learned in the journey. This is what it's taught me anyway, right? Okay, because there's no way who wants to forgive people that have hurt you? That sounds insane.
Yeah.
Fuck no, never. And that's why I understand when I meet people that come to me that are like, oh, fuck no, never. And we put these vows in from childhood that go, I will never tolerate that behavior again. I will never forgive that perpetrator. I will never. And we put that vow in.
Yeah.
And it's
And
completely natural.
we actually believe that that vow is protecting us, but it's actually
Yeah.
working against us.
Right. So this is where the armoring and the vows and the beliefs, they strengthen that armor, right? So if I put my hand in between you and me, can you see my eyes?
No.
So if I've got love, peace, and stillness inside me, and then I've got my pain and my trauma that's sat on top like the mud, then I've gone and had to protect and defend myself from this fucking crazy world and these fucking crazy people and these fucking crazy entities, and I put my armor on, then do you think that my love can get out very easily? You know, like can you can you see my eyes? Can you feel my love through my eyes? Can you
And
even
I can't give it to you either.
No, because do you think I'm going to believe it? It's going to so you're going to beam love. I'm here to help you. I love you. I forgive you. I believe you. But if I've got my defenses up, I can't let the wave, because everything is a wave. Every emotion, everything is a frequency wave. So that's really what this key point to forgiveness is. Until we unpack what is the firstly the armor. Okay, it takes quite a lot of courage to go, oh, I'm gonna take off my armor and hold the possibility that there's going to be help for me, that the possibility that I might be able to trust somebody and that they would be gentle with my body and my being and my soul. And so that in itself takes a lot of willingness. Then what comes out from the pressure that's been behind the wall, the guard, the armor, it builds a pressure. And what comes out initially, Poppy, for a lot of people, not always, anger.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's been a capstone. It's built pressure.
Ooh,
I've got these beautiful
rage.
Yeah.
That's scary.
So I want
Oh
to
my
say
God.
the use of energy. Okay, I want everyone to think quantum physically now. The pressure builder from a child who's had thoughts and beliefs, who's never really been able to express them out of the body to let them go, has held them in like a hamster wheel. It's gone round and round and round. And you think of that physics class, if anybody took that physics class, where you're generating, you even on a bicycle, remember we used to have those generators that would make a light go as long as you were pedaling, dynamo, right? So the dynamo of rehashing thoughts and feelings, just like Brandon was constantly going, it's my fault, or what did I do? I must have been me that was bad, and I must intrinsically be fucking unworthy. And you're going over scenarios and you create a charge, an electrical charge. And then so I got these great words, like when we use the word
Um,
yeah.
another word for that charge, and what I'm thinking is it's a trauma bond, because
Yep.
if we haven't released the trauma, we're still bonded to the perpetrator.
Yeah, I'm getting down to that layer next, and you can talk so much on that. So first we're talking about the armor, and see what I mean? The little
I know, I'm trying to
I like it though. It's kind of like it's affirming, like you're spot on, girl. Yeah, so you first you have to acknowledge there is armor, which is natural to protect and defend. Then when you have the courage to take the armor aside, the pressure of the trauma is there, and that is an electrical current
Yes.
that then interferes with all of your electrical pathways and neural pathways. And so then the first and initially, quite often people are, and this is the word, discharging an electrical charge. So then we can now initially, and you'll see it in human behavior, when anybody's had a hurt or a fight or something, anger comes and we want to push and we want to shove and we want to move that energy from us. We want to discharge what we're holding. We discharge it. And then we're left with what's beneath what's in and around and being charged up. And then that's the trauma. And so then the trauma, we're now getting down, down, down through the layers to the core of how we're going to get to forgiveness is to go into the core of the trauma. And then we're going to discover, not only so the freedom is the discharging, right? But what are we discharging? We're discharging any disassociation. We're discharging any dismemberment. We're discharging any dislike. We're discharging any disempowerment.
And what is clap? Because
what is disempowerment? What is disempowerment? If I'm empowered, and now I have a negative come in, a programming or a self-belief, I'm disempowering my power.
Yes.
Okay. But
she's brilliant. Isn't she brilliant?
Guess what? When you go and you discover through the journey process and other processes that, oh my gosh, I've got disempowering beliefs, I've got dis-ease physically showing up. I feel disconnected. You know, when you find all the disses, that's great. You're on a treasures, journey down into like, wow, now I'm finding all these dis. That means I'm nearly at the place where there's no dis and there's only the ease. This is the ease.
It's uncovering, isn't it? You're not putting anything on no more masks, no more sticking plasters.
No more false positivity.
Off here.
Yeah, you're coming. You have to acknowledge I had disbelief. I had dis-ease. I had what did I say? Disassociation, right? These are all wonderful ways of the armoring, right? And the programming that's damaging you. So we go down and we acknowledge through our vocal, don't we, Poppy? Through voicing, by letting the younger you speak.
Connecting. Because what happened to me, like, okay, I'm just going to say it, but violent sodomy is what happens early on, and that's actually literally disconnects the brain. And so it means your left brain it's got its rational part, and you've got your right brain's got its creative. But I was just caught in all emotion. I was just, for a while, I was just all emotion, and the connection could not happen. I couldn't express the emotion. All I could do was feel it, and I was just constantly triggered.
And that's when it's trauma bonds. Triggered. That's when you're in that emotion, that's when it bonds to something.
Yes.
So it can bond to a memory, it can bond to a person, it can bond to an experience, it can bond to a savior. You're bonded means that you're it's gonna repeat and repeat and repeat on cycle, on loop. You know, you're ingraining it in your memory. And when you said that about sodomy, my darlings, the sodomy is absolutely the Freemasonic and occult, even before Freemasons, to the occult way of disconnecting you from the mother.
Yeah.
So the root chakra literally has roots that go down energetically like a plant. You know, this beautiful flower, this lotus, whatever, however you want to see yourself, the sunflower has the stem of the body, and the roots go down through the coccyx and through the feet into the earth. So if you go into the coccyx and you go in through, okay, graphic trigger warning, into break and sever the root chakra to the mother, then you're now taking something and you're bonding it to you, whoever is the perpetrator of that abuse. So you are now, it's like taking a child out of, it's like snatching a baby, sadly, from their mother. All of a sudden, whoever's holding their hand and giving them food and giving them love, they will bond on to that. So if they're
even just their needs, because I didn't
even in abuse, that's where you get Stockholm syndrome, is that whoever's kind of caring for it's not even caring, there might be no caring there, but if they're not anywhere near the mother, that baby will begin to bond, and it becomes this trauma bond.
And most
and you have the child.
Most people in our trauma are bonded to government systems, which means there's forgiveness to be done there.
Oh yes. So we've gone down, we've acknowledged armor, and that has been a defense. So what we're doing in our childhood development as we grow up now, and we're I mean, I never ever wanted to be called an adult. Fuck, my God. But what I've learned is what happens in adulthood and why people reject adulthood is because you're then, now I have to be a responsible adult. I'm responsible for money. I'm responsible for children. I'm responsible. If you break that gorgeous word down, it means I'm able to respond. And that's what you were given. There's the privilege and the honor to have the ability to respond. Okay. And it comes with soul maturity. Not all of us are going to get, you know, like you look around and not everybody, we're at the soul maturity that we're at, basically. We're all individually matured and ripened as much as we are, and that's going to continue. And thank God for menopause, because you really get to undo a lot of programming and have a stock take of your life, and you get to mature very much more freely than, you know, not everybody, but this is another thing I can talk about is the menopause time when you can start to drop away some of these shackles and armor. So what the child has done is it's learnt to armor up. Then the adult goes, I feel limited, I feel left away from my potential, I feel held back, I feel like I'm missing something, I feel like I should be living my purpose. It feels like there's this lack of like juice, and you don't feel connected to some power that you kind of know intrinsically that you are. And then if you explore self-healing and your self-inquiry, you go, oh, that's just a natural part of development now, with those childhood strategies and mechanisms of defense of, you know, we've got a myriad of childhood strategies to keep us safe, right? It could be manipulation. It could be, you know, playing a victim sometimes to get the attention we need, or we do all these mind games because it's childish and it works. So whatever works, we'll keep in our toolbox. And one of the things we've kept in our toolbox is now our armor, which is now we've talked about it, how it keeps you separate from source, and it keeps you separate from the love in your relationships, that the love can't come in and the love can't go out. But I feel safe in behind my wall from the world. I've got a buffer. Until you realize the buffer starts to be the thing that is preventing energy from coming in to drive the body's function. And then the body, if you like, starts to implode. It starts to decrease in its function. It's not plugged in to source energy that is infinitely pouring. And if you've had any damage at the root chakra, you are now not having any of the free earth energy coming up to fill the cells of the body with light energy and earth energy and function. So with this two-way power that has been severed and distorted, the function of the body is you start to deteriorate behind this armor, and you're just kind of left with whatever's going on in the mind and the body that just kind of replays and rehashes, because you haven't actually opened the gate to express it and release it. So this modality, and what Poppy's finding, is that the expression is the next key in the forgiveness. And so
baseball bats, oh my gosh, it was a survivor. I was inspired by another survivor, Carrie Hart. She's beautiful, but she said how she takes out her anger is a baseball bat. You just hit it, and like, yes, I can do it in the journey, but I actually had to find a way where I could actually let that anger out. So I actually took to thumping at my bed with the people, the perpetrators, that I still felt so much anger and so much expression. And sometimes I actually had to shout and scream and let the anger out that way. Yeah. And because I've had so much going on around my throat and my neck, and actually I've had some medical tests, and there has actually been actual pressure on my spinal cord, which has caused paralysis symptoms at different times with the different things. As I resolve this healing and trust my body now, I can trust my body now with everything that's going on. Even if I get a bit paralyzed and I can't talk, support's coming around me. Well, I couldn't do any of that before this process. I really couldn't. My body, I knew it, but I couldn't.
You were in a state of contraction and armoring and defense and protection.
Yeah, I was. And I want to say that I've been scapegoated, I've been heavily judged, I've been rejected, I've been abandoned, I've been thrown away by so many people, but not Marie. Marie could actually see me where I was at. She could meet me where I was at, and she could see the bigger picture, and she could see that where I was getting triggered and where I was sabotaging myself and where I was having all of these things going on, she could actually see what was going on. And
where you were just armoring, because a child would want to protect and defend.
Yes.
And also when you were suppressed by those that targeted you and suppressed you. So it is helpful to have a trusted person that's been through some process work. And I do believe we've all got these people in our lives. We have to discern from our gut instinct who those people are that are going to be a piece.
If you haven't got someone in your life, just ask that they come to your life. Yeah,
well,
come connect.
Yeah.
If you feel connected, if you feel you can resonate. We are about cleaning this through the planet, through ourselves, through everything. So
you can only share by experience, can't you? Probably you can only share what you've experienced and what's worked. You know, this is the thing. It's proofs in the pudding for it. We're not anyway, back to forgiveness. So we've got through armor, we've got through pressure, which is initially that fuck you kind of energy of like, I'm angry, and then the trauma. And so the trauma starts possibly not necessarily always with anger at the top, but with all those emotions that we've discussed of how the mind has beliefs, you know, the unworthiness, the helplessness, the hopelessness, the I'm all alone, the victim, the fear, the absolute terror, the apathy. There's every emotion on that spectrum in the trauma. Then there's the releasing the trauma, which requires the voice to open. And because you can talk to counselors, you can talk to therapists, you can talk to friends, you can, as long as you're talking, you're helping yourself, you're emptying your bucket, you can write it out, which is what Kathy O'Brien used in her recovery from PTSD, was the writing it out. As long as the energy is getting out the body, it's leaving, and I call it emptying the buckets. And the greatest way in the journey that I know to empty the bucket, because I did it with my thyroid. Remember, I literally went into here, went down into my body, found buckets of like words and feelings and experience, and I just opened this and out it came. Meant that you're pouring out the bucket of shit that you've held onto and believed. And it's not really shit, it's just the mud. It's from a childhood perspective, you know, a childish perspective that doesn't know as much as you do now. And it begins to empty, and it tips this balance inside you. You definitely feel an energy balance of light and dark. You're like, whoa, I feel lightening up now, and the heaviness that holds down the matter, the materialization of that heavy water. Think of it like a sponge. I often say to you, you're just wringing the sponge out, Poppy? Like the heaviness in your water, in your cells.
Isn't that amazing? It's like when you say heavy water, and it's like the heaviness in the blood. You know, it's the contamination.
It's toxic. It's toxicity. Yeah.
And that's what you know. Everybody in humanity is going through at this time. We're all
wringing our sponge.
Yeah. Like once we get stuff into the sponge for the first.
The stuff's in the sponge. That's so the heaviness is why people have fibromyalgia, why they have chronic fatigue, right? So it takes a lot of energy of that life force that could be limited because you're contracted and you're squeezed and everything's tight and there's tension in the muscles right down to the veins and capillaries and brain pathways. Everything gets contracted because the armor wants to protect and hold you in. And you go into this kind of small squished space where your light, it can't shine in that place. Like again, if I'm shining, can you see my shine from my eyes? No, you can't see the shine from my eyes. It's not till I remove my armor that out my energy goes, and you can feel my shine. You can you know, expand.
I love
energy.
Your
Yeah. My starlight shine.
Yes.
But so now we're getting down to it. So we're getting down to what's held in our sponge. You know, our children are sponges. They sponge up everything. Yes, absolutely. The cells are water. They're the body, the skin is the sponge. So we're taking it all in. Now we get down to releasing the other side of the coin, intentionally, consciously choosing to at least just go to trauma and release it and want to release it. And we've got a method that we're telling you can work for anybody without expectation of saving you or rescuing you or healing you. We're saying this is
do the own work. Marie facilitates my process in such a way that I do all it. It's my process.
Yeah.
And like all the questioning is absolutely.
What is this emotion?
Yeah, that opens, so it becomes my process. So it's my journey, it's my resolution, and it's a very, very sacred
personal process. Yeah. So individual. Okay, so then now we've come down to asking the body that holds the inner child. What do you want to say? What do you want to express? And that's where a lot of revelation happens. And you're not under hypnosis, you're actually, but you are observing yourself, aren't you, Poppy? Like the present day
Yeah.
you
I
is
have had,
observing.
I had hypnotism, and I would say that it's an interactive hypnotic state from what I could see, how I would
Yeah,
describe.
it's a guided introspection. So you're actually so intelligent that you can hold the space of going into the subconscious. So normally we would have to use a hypnotic state to go into the subconscious, but these days we're so, many of us are very able to hold.
We're right there.
And this, thanks to Brandon, this process means you can go in consciously into your think again like a bit of a computer where you've got the hard drive, with your eyes open and your eyes or your eyes closed, but with your wide awake state. Go in and go, what is down there on the files? What is written there? What is held and believed in my pain and my childhood? And some people, I completely understand if you never want to go there, you never want to look back, you never want to poke the bear, you never want to open the wound. Okay, but I will say to you, that is your free will. And an example is my beautiful mother from that generation that is, leave good and well enough alone, leave it alone. And they come to their own level of forgiveness of what's gone on and they make their own peace with life. However, she doesn't have a bowel. She doesn't have fallopian. She doesn't have a uterus. She, so many things because of that toxicity in her sponge has literally eaten her body from the inside out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's because of the fire element. So when you've got your armor to protect you, and you get an electrical charge through the pain and the trauma and the memories that you've lived through, and it's like that dynamo and it's making a charge. If you don't release that charge, that pressure, if you don't have an outlet, whether exercise, physical exercise or singing or creating or, writing or discharging it, then it does go toxic. The water has now got uh, the hormones, okay, of adrenaline and you know, I don't know if dopamine, but all of the chemicals, they have a flavor to them of the way that they're chemically made up. They're for short bursts, they're for like power and charge to run away in a fight or flight situation. But if we don't discharge that, this is what I've spoken of in other videos, is it can start to stay stuck in this container behind our wall, our defenses, and go toxic. And energy healers will talk about stagnant energy, and doctors will talk about acidic, okay, and natural health practitioners will talk about acid and alkaline, and I'll just call it toxicity. It's whether it's emotional, physical, mental. It's gets stored and it gets held, and then it burns and eats away like an acid.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want that for you. We really wish and we'd pray. And the Poppy, what I wanted to refer to you is having some of the paralysis symptoms come back in, is
Mm.
this time on earth, yo-yoing between a very third dimensional experience and a higher fifth dimensional experience of our soul stream. Okay, you exist on all these dimensions.
Yeah.
Means that we're kind of in the end of polarity, and
Yes.
we're yo-yoing between freedom and peace, and then more triggering will bring up more of, wait on, there's more stuff in the bottom of your bucket, in the cells of the body, in the sponge. So you actually get, it's kind of like it's inevitable that you're going to get shown what's still in you, what's still held, because the time in evolution is that this human human body is purging. And it actually means that nothing's going to get left in the cells. It's all going to find its way out. And however you do that, and so this is just one way that you can start to empty and do that. And so it's natural that you're going to find that the human experience goes into a contraction. That's when something's cooking and boiling up to be released. And then you release it, and the key being the forgiveness part, that is the releasing part. And then you go back into that expanded state. And so your job in humanity right now is to witness when you've gone into a state of sort of shut down into the lower, really human stuff, the human stuff of feeling the emotions on the lower end of the scale that we wouldn't want to call negative or positive, but that we call heavy, which is the lower feelings, the lower sensations, and the lower health. And that you go into a state of contraction in order, whoosh, to propel you back into the expanded state. So if you're listening to your body when it goes into symptoms that come back and recur, you're just like, oh, okay, so there's more. It's not that you haven't, like, people go, oh, I've let this go, I've done this, but actually you're just realizing there's more of this to let go. And so, Poppy, do you want to talk more of your experience of forgiveness for people and include this emotional release in order to be allowing you to forgive?
Yeah, well, I actually had
Could you just fake forgiveness? Could you just,
I think there's a lot of pressure in the New Age movement to fake forgiveness, and I think I was in denial. Like, I actually thought, well, I've just got to love and I've got to forgive. And my concept of forgiveness was not good before. So mine is like, oh, well, you have to forgive in order for things to happen. But actually, forgiveness is something that happens. It's not
a byproduct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that you could make yourself do. And so I used to get along in this, it was almost a mask. It was a fake sort of everything's wonderful. I mean, I was programmed to do that.
Right?
Yeah, I was programmed to be very positive and very optimistic and to make my world look like it's okay when it's not. And so I was coming across as super positive and all of that sort of thing, but there was a mask on, and I would talk about forgiveness in a different way back then. So that thing about that pressure, oh, now you've just got to forgive, not like even long, because I also came out of I was in Christianity for quite a long time, and it was, it's just as much as I'll just give it all to Jesus. Okay, so you can hear these comments and go, oh, okay, so in your mind, oh, I gave it all to Jesus, but it's only an idea, and it hasn't carried through with the actual motions that are required.
Yeah.
Yeah, so initially, when I was in the journey process with Marie and I was feeling the pain and I was in my body, I had so much trouble expressing it. It was like I just, the words wouldn't come. It was like, but Marie was amazing. She just kept at it and kept at it with me. And she's like, and how did that feel? And how did that feel? And it was like, always, and like, is a really steady thing. So there's never any expectation on me, because I actually had to learn how to get these parts of my brain to connect. And they're not, I need more work to get that, because I'm very uncoordinated in my body, which is also another thing. But I'm, like, one thing at a time. I have, since the 31st of October, what has been cleared from me is monumental. It's absolutely monumental.
We wish we had have recorded it all, but we were in it, and it's important to have it sacred for you.
Yeah, that's right. Well, now we're speaking because we really feel that this is something which absolutely helps the planet. It helps every human, and there's a whole bunch of us that would really, really like to transcend this matrix, which is just about, it's just holding on by bits at the moment in our consciousness, because that's how it does.
We created a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We held it in, I should say.
Yeah. Well, actually, I feel
it.
like that's a point that I want to say, that I've had this revelation. So I live with an animal. I live with a cat, and I observe the animals. I've observed animals all my life, and I observed how animals just get around in nature, and they just naturally harmonize and balance, and they don't do things which are harmful towards the planet or the earth. So what they do is they live by what we call the id, the ID, the id. So the id is a part of our consciousness, which is where our psychic senses are. And so this is where we are instinctual. And yeah, but humans also have an ego. So what has happened a lot to humanity in the big scheme of things? Our id has been hijacked, which means our psychicness has been hijacked. And our psychicness is what gives us that connection. That's where we actually can balance and harmonize. The egos that come. So what happens is that because our psychicness has been hijacked and taken away, our egos have come in to try to resolve things very much from our conscious mind. And this is why I feel it's important, because it's been a massive thing that has come in from, I just call it alien technology, okay, because all SRA, it's alien technology, all the interference.
Nefarious alien technology.
Yeah, nefarious alien technology. That's right. There's nefarious alien technology that was actually came in with the draconian Lyran wars, and we're going through that belt, and this is our opportunity to clean up the debris, so to speak. But part of the technology is to take the id of the human, hijack it with an entity, and that's where we get the word id, entity. So what's happened to humanity, and maybe this is the Wetiko, is the entity has been attached to the id.
Yeah.
There's various ways they do this. Okay, so first of all, you're registered at birth, and so it's kind of almost like an agreement unwittingly by the parents. But there's that, and there's all sorts of technology in there. But it's actually separating the id and the entity. that entity is like that influence. And actually, my last journey therapy, I think that came up, didn't it? Because I ended up talking to what I would call the conductor of my whole life, who took my will through my id. And that, and it happened at that 2-year-old ritual particularly.
Yeah. Because you just said exactly that. The birth certificate, this is where a lot of the common law, wonderful people that have picked up that baton and gone with it, that's exactly it. Once you've signed your life away to an entity, a body,
contracted,
a corporation, you are not you are. This is all bullshit. This is all done.
But they want you to believe that you're not.
It's all belief.
The entity will make you believe you're not.
Yeah. So now
the entity is the government, and we
own you. Yeah. We own you, and we're going to use you. Well, actually, what it is we not own you. We have access to you. That's probably more accurate, right? Because they can't own us. We can definitely feel owned, and we definitely behave like owned cattle sometimes. That's exactly right? But that signing of our ID onto a birth certificate and giving it, I mean, more people will know how that's done, and you can go look up common law. But that consent from parents that unwillingly, and it's gone through generations and generations, to record who you are, stamp who you are, but actually give you over to it's the matrix. Basically, it's the thing that we're creating that now you are a part of. So you've given your family's given consent to give you to this matrix that's being created, which is a body of humanity that is now gonna succumb to these laws and these rules and this control.
Yeah. And so that's the thing, is that we don't even know where the consent came in so often in our lives. So the last journey therapy that I had sacked the conductor. And it had a huge big knock-on effect for
okay, just go
around the world.
Yeah, man, go back to explain the conductor. So how you would describe it.
Handler. What was coming up in my consciousness was like, my whole life has been coordinated. Everywhere I've been, a handler would come in every single way it was coordinated for me.
Like your parents.
And I was not the author of my own life. Someone was always an authority.
And that's the triangle, isn't it? The pyramid that goes. So you've got Poppy, you've got Poppy's parents as a handler, you've got the people that are handling Poppy's parents, you've got the people that are handling the handlers that are handling Poppy's parents, right up to the principality, which is these entities. It's out of this world.
The conductor. Yeah. And
well, the conductor works for the principalities. The principalities are not even the conductors. They put in place the conductors to organize. Think of it as marionettes. It's just all marionettes, puppets on a string.
Yeah. Well, the one on my journey I felt was the head of the whole program, and it was like the head of the handler program.
Right.
And I talked to, so what happens in the journey is you can get to talk to these things and say, well, and ask them any question, and they have to answer in that.
Because it's a free will universe, we have to have knowledge of why are you here? What are you doing to me?
Yeah. So I had that conversation, and when he went back to source, it had such a huge knock-on effect.
How did he go to source? Because what did you have to do and say? He wasn't just going to take himself back to source. Well, you had to.
No, actually, you might have to recall that part for me, because I went into disassociation after, because it was so huge. I went into the abyss. I went into the void, which is the creative space, because I suddenly didn't have that handler energy for the first time in my life. And it felt so different. And there's huge changes in my body, huge changes. I'm still integrating from that happened just over a week ago.
Yeah, man.
It is incredible. But yeah, if you can remember that.
Okay. Oh, it's a little bit to wrap your head around, guys. But so I mean, you see it in businesses, you see it in corporations, literally with the figurehead, okay, and the you've got the workers, then you've got the managers, then you've got the owners of the company, then you've got the owner of the corporation that's branded around the world of all these, it's sort of a bit like that. So we're thinking hierarchical in energy, and actually it's natural. It's mirroring the natural world, that in nature we have this kind of in nature you'll have the smallest creature gets eaten by the next biggest creature, that then gets eaten by the next one, and it's all the way up to the lion, and everybody's got to feed off somebody below them to survive. Okay, so what's happened is these entities have come into invert and mirror the natural world, and by using power, literally the power source, to feed this mock replica of the natural world. it's the unnatural, this the distorted light, and we are the natural light. The natural light just governs our body, that okay, I'm going to be a baby, I'm going to grow up, and I'm going to have my own baby. So I sort of am the guardian of my child, and I have control to keep that child safe and to look after that child, right? So that's a natural hierarchical thing. And I'm going to, if I'm a meat eater, I'm going to eat an animal and feed, cook up an animal and feed it to my child. Or if I'm a vegetarian, I'm going to take the life of a plant and I'm going to cook it and eat it as a survival mechanism. So the natural world has its own order. It really does. And you have free will. So you can choose to be a meat eater, you can choose to be a vegetarian, but either way, you're taking the life of something else in order for you to survive. With these handler hierarchical layers, so Poppy was controlled from the very beginning, and a lot of you beautiful, and not even just SRA survivors, but humanity at large. We're all survivors of this satanic ritual abuse. It's not even funny. It's just, it's crazy that it's true, right? I'm laughing because it's true.
It's
Like
under
what?
everything.
What the fuck? Yeah. So
like money is written on the ritual of the blood of the children.
yeah, like this is what our light codes from the sun are activating. We're all of a sudden taking off the rose tinted glasses, going, oh my gosh, were we asleep to that? When did that get put in place? And we've been oblivious. We've given our power over to politicians and authority figures. So the people that have come along to handle these children, we're going to deliver you to a ritual. We're going to drug the parents, and we're going to take your child to a ritual, and we're going to be using the life force of your child to we're going to literally take the power, and we're going to use that power just like they've plugged you into a socket, because you're plugged into source. We're going to use that power to power up this idea, this idea that we want to create. So it could be the financial system, it could be a control system, it could be an education system, a medical system, it could be, we're literally going to take your power, because we know that this is unnatural, what we're trying to create. So it's not going to be created on its own from nature. We have to take power, breathe power into this thing, and then it's come to life in manifestation. So this is the sadness of it, is the reality that that this life has been used by people that now actually have to physically go and get the child. They have to physically go and educate that child in a negative way, so that the child never has great self-esteem, it never has great self-belief, it never has the remembrance of its connection to source, and its connection to the Mother Earth, and its connection to the love of its parents. So there's a lot of manipulation and mind control that goes on, and these are people with probably entity attached to them to now handle the behavior of preparing this child and these groups of humanity, so that we can siphon their energy and create something here that we wish to create, which is an unnatural matrix something or other. Okay, that's how it's got put in place. So Poppy realized she had, unfortunately, her parents had been also handled and programmed, and a lot of the drugging that takes place means that when you drug a person, another part of their psyche it can become available and programmable, and a part splits, and that's what's called the disassociation, the parts of the mind. So the mind is programmed by lots of handlers for different reasons. There's ones that have gone, and we know that a lot of people have talked about the ones that have done the beta kitty and the sexual handling training. And then there's the mind control for everything, all kinds of handlers and people. And then above them, actually, there was people giving them an order. Okay, you're going to go do the training on the assassin training, or the sex beta kitty training, or the just keeping you in low self-esteem training. And so everybody's got their jobs, but they were actually ordered by another set of handlers. And then above them, another set of handlers and another set of handlers. And so that's where the Freemasonic and the occult kind of came into play, is that somebody actually is orchestrating way above them. And those are the principalities: Baal, Baphomet,
Lucifer.
Lucifer. There's 9, and there's probably more. To be fair, there's probably more, but these are the ones that have come to Earth to handle the matter of taking over a species and doing what thou will with us by getting us to comply. And the greatest way to comply is to break the mind and to break the free will. So that's what it was. And so Poppy, going back to the discovering that she took it all the way back to a conversation through going into her cells and discovering this control that was put on her body, on her cells, on her mind, was leading her to a conversation of this principality that she calls the conductor. And she could literally see it, and it kind of shows you the cosmic nature, that not just in a human limited box of understanding, but in a very soul developed, vast understanding of the cosmos, you can actually see how energies come to the planet and then use what's here and can manipulate what's here. And so she realized there was this conductor being, entity, that was running orders all the way down in her whole life. And so the words she had to come to, and it just came out of the fire elements of that rage, of that sadness, of that anger. Once she'd released all of her rage, sadness, anger, she was back in the place of peace. And so from peace, you're connected to source, right? Remember that the peace is at the bottom before any mud got put on top. And you are directly connected to source. And so that's your power. And so from that place, you don't even know you're going to do it and say it, but the power surge that comes up, that now has the authority to speak to something that's controlling you and say, no, I do not consent in this free will universe. I never gave consent. I rebuke consent. Okay, these can't be lip serviced. This is literally talking to this with your eyes closed and seeing this actual entity right there. So you're speaking to it. It's not a pretend game. Even though you can operate in that place of imagination, we can still get a release happening. So for us, it's very real. We're talking to these entities because in the light spectrum on Earth, we might not be able to see it with our physical eyes, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist in the outer spectrums, which is in the infrared spectrum, where the lower entities can be seen with infrared, eye goggles and stuff. And they did that in Vietnam. So closing your eyes is a great way to be able to see anything that might be around you, malevolent and benevolent. It's wonderful. You can see grandma that's passed away. You can see, all sorts of things. So when we do the journey, this is what we say. We see and we talk to these things because they're coming into the field, or they're in our body. They've had control over us. They've been plugged into us. So Poppy commanded authority to literally unplug from her And then it was like I watched and witnessed. It was like cutting the strings of this marionette, and all of a sudden this puppet is not a puppet anymore, being puppeted, but is back in her own authority of her own body. And it is like a newborn baby again. This is the newborn like experience of like, how do I know what's mine now? Is this mine? Is this my feeling? What am I feeling? When you've constantly been controlled and told, you're gonna your mind controlled and MK Ultra into, this is what you're gonna feel, this is what you're gonna think, this is what you're gonna do, and this is how you're gonna behave. And so I'm so proud of you, Poppy, because not just even in this big journey of letting that conductor go, but in the previous journeys that you've done where you've reclaimed your auric field, and you've reclaimed your blood, and you've reclaimed your life force, you've reclaimed your authority as a sovereign being that says I have free will, that says nothing is allowed to be attached to me, and nothing is allowed to siphon this energy, because you never have consent. This is the thing in a free will universe, and it's a cosmic law, actually, and that only you get to operate in this body that you came in as. And unfortunately, we've given consent away, and we've given our power away. We use that word very easily. People can identify with saying, I've given my power away, I've lost my power, they've sucked my power, they've drained my power. We do consciously know this, but to even more consciously action it, which says, okay, we feel like people have taken our power. How do you reclaim your power? And it actually is more simple than we've been led to believe, which is nobody can be attached to you unless you give permission for that attachment to be attached. So as soon as you recognize, shit, I have all these energetic attachments, and once upon a time I never used to believe in them. I thought they were all like all that spiritual mumbo jumbo. But now, as I've come more into myself, I realized that was a great program to call it all spiritual mumbo jumbo, because that'll keep you from not believing that that we attach, and we can detach. So we're coming into the age of detachment, where this think of yourself as a light bulb. This light bulb, it needs the power of the earthing of the earth to light it up, to get that full light power. And all these things that have been siphoning off of us and puppeting us and controlling us have just been having access to our chakras and depleting the light and the life force out of the function of the body. So the fact that we're all standing here alive and breathing is a goddamn miracle. Sorry.
It is. Oh,
don't
worry, he's not that insecure.
Yeah. No, I know.
Doesn't need worship either.
So the affirmation, if anything, to come out of this is that forgiveness is the key. You can't lip service forgiveness, and you can't go. A lot of people have said to us, be quick to forgive, and you can't. So we acknowledge that you cannot be quick to forgive and you'll be sweet as pie. You have to go in and release the trauma so that you come to a natural place of emptiness where you're like, it's just like a child having a meltdown and a tantrum. The parent will look to that child with unconditional love, hopefully, naturally, and acknowledge, because we were there too once upon a time, and go, my kid that's now a teenager saying, I hate you, I fucking hate you, I don't love you, and behaving badly. Well, they're just expressing that trauma from somewhere. they're expressing their trauma. They're trying to discharge their trauma. And yet, as a parent, we can forgive even the behavior. The unconditional love says, that's just behavior. I can forgive that. So on a deeper scale, when we've been the wounded child and a victim of SRA or a victim of any kind of abuse, like I say, the armor and the vows that say, I will never forgive that perpetrator, they can be such a prison that can lock us in behind the armor and prevent us from the natural state of forgiveness. Because a child, actually, without abuse, referring back to that woman who changed her whole view of the world because somebody stole her pencil, and she developed 3 inoperable brain tumors. She then, I must say, went on to heal them and does not have them. They're gone. They don't exist in her body anymore. She used the journey method, and she's one of our earliest survivors from nearly 30 years ago. But what I'm getting at is that when you build on it and you don't have a natural ability to forgive, or you don't have anybody to help you process, that really, I hear what you're saying. Like, if you don't come home to your parents and say, she stole my pencil, and the parents don't go, oh yeah, okay, get over it. They say, oh, that must have really hurt, you want to talk about that, and then you express it off your body and you discharge your anger and your rage and your heartbreak and your sadness and your disbelief at, like, how could a friend do this? That's what this conscious parenting is beginning to do, is to, like, or conscious friendship, do you want to talk about that? Do you want to process that? You don't have to go into any big, deep process. You just need to be heard and held and listened to while you empty. And you can do that by yourself as well. I teach my kids to journey. Well, when they were receptive to it, my child would come home from school and he would come home in a charged up state, right? Electrically, like, and you could almost see it coming off him. And I'm like, what's the problem? And he's like, the teacher. And I'm like, okay, so I don't need to wear that, but how about you go to your room and you discharge it, close your eyes and see your teacher, and then you empty. And so the door would be closed and I would hear, you freaking you. And I felt you made me feel, and then it's done. And then he'd open the door and he would come out and I'd be like, how are you? You're right. And he goes, we breathe that sigh of relief. So nobody can forgive. There's no lip service to forgiveness until you've discharged thoroughly, and this journey process gives you an opportunity to, and you might go back in and empty out pieces of the same trauma, Poppy? Like, you go, like you can't necessarily empty the whole thing at once, but you may, you very well may.
That our bodies are so amazing and they're so intelligent that they have a safety mechanism where I can't, that if I'm not ready to see what's there, it'll take me as far as I can, and then we'll get a bit later. Like at the moment, I'm having my journeys that go on the background while I'm not seeing Marie, and I'm chipping away at a memory which is very, very difficult to see. It's just really macabre and really gross, and I'm seeing where it got in, because I'm seeing what it's actually to do with the death program of being bound to death.
How it got attached.
How it got attached, and what was involved with that. And so now I'm looking deeper and deeper, and I'm just chipping away with that. Actually, each night now I have a little bit of a habit of doing a bit of journey, a bit of campfire process, a bit of checking in with my parts, like who's upset, like, because I notice then when something's out, because when things big things happened, I always feel like I'm going to get killed, because it actually was a reality. And there was a very real charge in that. So, yeah.
The fear of death has been a charge. Yeah.
I wasn't afraid of the death. It was just being always tied to this, where you're too close to death. Like
Probably the fear of the pain.
I was literally tied to a dead body as a little one.
Yeah.
And left, and there was a coffin, and the lid came on.
That's horrific, eh?
Yeah. But I'm discharging the emotion at the same time. So if I had told you that earlier, I could not. Well, I wouldn't have been able to say that. I just
No.
wouldn't have
And so we do the prayer of the highest and best for each journey. And I know that people listening to this are going, how can they be aware of all these parts? It's only now, having gone through the journey and met the process and done it repeatedly, that you can process in your daily life out there, like Poppy does at home, like I do. I journey myself, because you are the investigator. Your higher self observes inside your body, like I say, the video recording, the audio recording, the experiential feelings. You get to be what they talk about, the observer, the witness, and you get to, like, you're because you now have released a lot of emotion, your psychic powers, if you like to use that word now, but your innate sensory capacity, the fullness of it's not even the fullness, we're not even anywhere near the fullness, but the abilities that we have to be aware, this is my body, so I will naturally know and be the author of, and have access to all the records of my experience, not just from this lifetime's experience, but in the DNA and in the soul, all the records, and some people term them Akashic records. I don't even know. It doesn't matter. It's I it's like going to the doctors and saying, give me my file of my health record, and they give you the file. So we are the living, breathing file of what happened to our physical shell and our non-physical soul and our non-physical mind. Okay, and it all shows up in the body. That's why, if we've been doing a lot of wonderful strategies to avoid it, we're using our armor in different ways. Our armor can show up as disassociation, because that's wonderful. It's really protected us until it doesn't. Drinking, drugging, eating, shopping, sex,
overworking,
technology, overworking, like all these things are part of an armor of behavior that goes right down into the armor of the body. They all distract you and keep you away from the pain, but they also keep you away from the power and the love and the peace. So going back to those steps of forgiveness, Poppy could only have been healing, and I could only have been healing, and Brandon could only have been healing if we, by doing the discharging and the emotional release. So to me, it's underlying everything. You can't positivity your way through to good health and freedom. You positivity is what's needed, but the negativity and the heaviness and what's in your sponge and the needs to be really made peace with. The real peace of mind that says, I'm going to go into the peace of mind that's holding the most horrific pain and the most horrific feelings and the most horrible hatred and the most horrible blame. And even where we find the vows, and we find those vows that say, I'm never going to forgive them, I'm never going to speak to them, I'm never going to do that again, I'm never going to, never, never, never. And they will lock you into your prison, as well as I'm going to do positive things over here. You have to go and empty the old sabotage and the old programs.
And you just back to that masculine, the masculine part, like that armor part that I had on, that was like, you know, how I will never forget you. Look what you've done. Look what you've done to the whole world and all that. But just we'll never transcend this matrix with defense and self-protection only. It's the forgiveness is a foundation. It
And
removes
that's not to say that we must become completely vulnerable and have no measures of self-defense, because this is what the natural armor was for. The iron levels, the iron, and probably not just iron, but other things in us are our natural defense so it's the micro and the macro, isn't it? It's the body.
It's the id.
It's the id.
Defense. Yeah.
The id knows how to naturally protect the cellular integrity of the body if it's got all of this energy available to it.
Yeah.
So it will use the light. It will use the light to go into the electrical circuitry, to go into the meridians, to go into pump the heart. It will use the light to work the brain. It uses literally light as the power source for everything. And if you've had blockages and shutdowns and programming and pain and suffering and then armor, it's a real challenge for that body to function the highest and best. And there's no problem, there's no right or wrong. Wherever you're at, perfectly where you're at. It is just to say that there is a possibility that where you're at isn't going to be where you're at in even a year's time, you know, with conscious awareness of where you're at. If you can forgive where you're at, even the self-forgiveness. We were going to talk about self-forgiveness. Actually, it was my friend Amber and I, we were talking at the fire this morning. We had a beautiful sunrise fire, and we were clapping into the fire and getting rid of, you know, a lot of things. And we're talking, she said, what are you going to be talking about today? And I said, Poppy and I are going to be talking about forgiveness. And she said, well, self-forgiveness is actually one of the hardest things for a lot of people to do. So if I can remind everybody back to how Brandon released her basketball-sized tumor, it wasn't just forgiveness of her father, it was the self-forgiveness that unlocked the tumor. Was hanging on by that last little thread of attachment, was the fact that she discovered, and she said the words in her books, I was clinging to the tumor, not the tumor wasn't clinging to me. The tumor's it's neutral. It's like, it's not, the tumor's just a tumor, but I was clinging to it because I'd attached the beliefs in there that I was to blame, that I was unworthy of love, that I deserved this behavior of abuse. And I know that sounds ridiculous to people that have suffered abuse. That what bullshit are you talking about, Marie? I never believed it.
I believed I was evil. I believed it was always my fault. I believed whenever something bad happened, it was my fault. I actually
and who distorted
the scapegoat program, and I needed to forgive
the programmer.
And so hold my little girl and go, oh my gosh, my little girl, you were never evil. It was never meant to be. I will love you and protect you now, you know? And
that's
so
the present day you. Yeah.
That self-forgiveness, like, and also just leaving my little girl back down there to rot. You know, I had an organized pity party in the weekend. I talked to Marie because I didn't even think I was allowed to have pity. And I talked to Marie, and I'd been talking with all my parts, and so I thought, right, I'm going to have a pity party. I'm going to say to my little 2-year-old girl, tell me what it was, you know. And she talked to me, and she told me what it was like being left for dead.
Because we've been told self-pity, you can't have self-pity.
But she could never have a voice to tell it otherwise. If I'm not interested in listening to my little girl, like, you were left alone, you were died, you were killed, and they revived you, or whatever, or you revived, and she has so much emotion and so much pain, you know. And so yeah, it's that I yeah, a big massive load of forgiveness for the way that it was all misinterpreted massively, you know. And that's freedom. And then when I've forgiven myself, I'm kind to myself, and I'm not telling myself destructive thought patterns, sending more commands into my body, create more disease, which
You
is
can't
going
feel
to
this and you can't say that and you're this and you can't, you're not controlling
yeah.
yourself, right? Hey,
Yeah. And that was the thing, you know, I did get out of control. I mean, for goodness sake, if this happened to you, like, of course I was going to happen like that. I'm a human being, you
yeah,
know?
with reactions,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which
yeah.
are intelligent, actually.
Yeah,
Mm,
because they're trying to keep that defense. They're trying to protect you. They're trying to ward off evil and pain and perpetrators. They're reacting. They're pushing
yeah.
away the danger. And so the difference between the reactivity and the response ability. So the what we're learning through the so initially in the first part of the journey, I guess what we're doing is we're asking the reactive experience of the child to speak. When we say the reactive, it's like, so what did you feel? And then the reactive part says, um, I hate you, and I feel anger, and I feel blame, and I feel and you this and you that, and you kind of unleash a whole lot of things you could never ever say as a child to somebody. These words get arrested in the body, they never get spoken. So, of course, we're going to get a lot of neck and throat issues because they just get trapped,
Of course. I love
right?
my neck. I love my throat.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I'm
so,
even aware in every interview how beat up my throat and my neck is, and my face has had all these cancers and shit. And so I will love that. I'm gonna
yeah.
love that. You give it new commands, because the other command, yeah, just
But you couldn't fake self love either, could you, Poppy? Like, it wasn't until you discharged the pain and you heard the little child speaking. So, this is what I find when I say to people, can you, like, if a child right here right now was having a meltdown, an upset moment, an adult is hardwired to generally an animal, you know, a mother and a father, they're hardwired to have compassion for this
yeah.
child. Like,
Mm,
actually, apart from the matrix programming that says you need to beat that out of that child, or you need to ignore the child, or you need to let it cry and self-soothe, and you bullshit, whatever. But in our nature, we're watching a child in pain, you move, or you stand back and you allow the child to process through. So what I'm getting at is when you go in a journey and you have a younger you show up at the campfire, you have a present day you show up at the campfire, it is very natural to come to self-forgiveness because you're witnessing again the words that this child is saying, I felt, the emotions I felt, you're seeing the memories of what that child lived through.
mm,
So you have such a compassionate part of observation. Observation alone can trigger it. Firstly, it can trigger lots of parts in the present. I'm not saying the present isn't holy. I'm saying there's a whole spectrum in the present you that is your highest self, your holy self, your sacred self. And then there's the present that's like actually watching that behavior and it's angry at it, like I'm angry at you, you're pathetic, we judge. So we're finding out that, wow, I judge my emotions, I've
mm,
judged
mm,
my child. But where did I learn the judgment from? Actually, it's this role reversal all the time, that the part of you that grew up to be the adult that has judgment was a child as well, another part of you that shows up at the campfire, and now she's judgment. So sometimes when we get resistance or judgment, we say, oh, who's showing up? So this one's having a sadness and it's telling us about its pain. And this little kid, another part of you is judging it, right? So right there becomes a conflict, the yin and the yang of something. And when you have a conflict in the body, that is the point where Brandon found the moment where weakness would happen. It would lose power in that part of the body now, that the function wasn't working as well as it would if there was no conflict. Okay, so the conflict points, we call them weak points, but they're actually where there's a conflict of a polarity usually. So in the journey, we do a lot of self-forgiveness, we really do go in and forgive. And the end of the journey is saying, I forgive you for all the pain you went through. So, you know, and like I say, the proof's in the pudding. And Brandon always used to say, don't ever go into a journey expecting healing. Go into the journey to expect release. And what comes from the healing will be. What will be, will be. But what I've found is without expectation, oh my gosh, healing has transpired and I've healed my thyroid, I've healed my liver, I've healed my spine, I've healed, you know, beliefs, I've held behaviors, suicidal ideology, you know, like, you know, and with Poppy, just watching you, and again, you're going to contract and expand on your healing process. And and so what you said before is, I get to watch Poppy be brave when she's on the phone going, oh my gosh, I've got paralysis this weekend, show up really strongly. And of course, I said to her, initially the mind, a part of the mind is going to go, what does that mean? Does this mean it didn't work? Does this mean it's going backwards? Does this mean it's like, what? She entered that for a moment and acknowledged that part of her. And then I was able to speak to the other part of her that says, remember, of course, you just disrupted a whole lot of,
because what's actually happening is this
now changing
breakdown of the toxic cells, and they're actually going so fast now. I've got swelling.
Well, right.
And so I'm really actually well aware that this is the process, and so
it's doing a lot. It's doing a lot, and that's it. You're detoxing, and also that the light is coming into places. Think of it like the light is a torch, and you've had shut off cupboards in the body, you know, shut off, closed cell receptors, actually what they are. So all these cell receptors are opening to the receptivity now of the light, and it can come in like a water blaster, and you're like, whoa, holy shit, for 40 years that's
it was like that. I actually felt like I'd been pulled back in a slingshot and it would just let me go, and I was going, woo, and I was like, where the heck am I? So
it can be scary. Healing can be frightening because things are changing in the body. But what I do love,
no reference. I was a totally different person. Actually, it actually happened in the instant that the conductor had to go. I became a totally different person, and I did not know myself I did not know myself as myself.
Right.
And so it was like, well,
and literally taking that into, you just really sparked a memory of, and trigger warning again, of a child that's been in captivity, or even an animal that's been in captivity, and then all of a sudden the prison, and this is humanity right now, the prison doors are flinging open, and that child, that animal, that human that's only known governmental control, you know, matrix control, is sitting inside the prison door of the prison cell is open, and many people are like, I'll just stay here because I don't know what's out there in the world of freedom. And what if I can't do it? And what if it's scary? And what if it hurts? And what if I muck it up? And what if I get it wrong? And I'll just sit here and wait. and maybe the world will come to me, you know, or whatever. So there's a familiarity with the prison, you know, it's a comfort zone, and we're moving and getting pushed and forced out of our comfort zone. Better to go willingly than to be push comes to shove and be forced out of our comfort zone, because that's traumatic. That's her, you know, that's horrific. So we are liberating that diamond child. I feel like we need to stop there, because I just feel like
I feel that too.
it's like the liberation of the magical child. And Poppy, I mean, I'm so grateful, because even though I've done a lot of liberation of my inner child, I've got to see you find this child, and the way you speak to her and the way you remember her. And, and it's like she's been cloaked, and then you've just pulled this blanket off her, and you're like, it's like this biggest, longest, horrific game of hide and seek.
I pulled off the coffin lid, actually.
Coffin lid, yeah. But she's been alive under there. And then the things that have come out, and I'm thinking back to another girlfriend when we did a lot of journeying on her arthritis 30 years ago. When we spoke to, and we do what's called a future pace, how are you a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, 6 months, you know, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years into the future, free of this trauma. This friend of mine 30 years ago, she said, oh, Marie, this little girl just wants to dance again. And she was a beaten child, and beaten to the point, and the beliefs had nailed her beliefs of herself to the point of arthritic disfiguration. And I met her, and her hands were like that. She couldn't really stretch. Her bones had disfigured. And I remember her saying, I want to dance, and I want to dance. I'm like, what are you doing in 10 years from now? She's like, Marie, we're dancing. I can see us dancing. Well, she lives here in Papamoa, in Tauranga. And we had a birthday party one time, and her and I were dancing, and I went, Marlene, it's your birthday, and it's about 10 years after that journey, we're dancing, you're dancing. And so I rang her the next day, how's your body? And she's like, it's great. There's no pain from all that dancing. So, you know, I mean, I just get to see everybody come back into vitality of the body, and have the whole, you know, it's not even, well, the whole life force is available, but it's now our job to detox the body and the mind, and forgiveness is a key. And if you want to talk more about forgiveness, you can definitely contact Poppy and myself to talk more, because we certainly don't lip service forgiveness, and we don't give it where it's not due. It just naturally is a byproduct of what comes from a compassion. And as far as forgiving the perpetrators, yeah, that might be a whole other conversation. Poppy alluded to it and touched on it. And surely people will be saying, no way. But there is a lot of people, it's always been in history that, you know, you'll get somebody, I remember even in movies, you'll see, and on news reports, the mother of a child that's been murdered by a gang member might go to that prison and visit that gang member and offer forgiveness. And people are like, wow, that's brave, and that's bold, and that's noble, and that's amazing. But that woman, that mother, has somehow known that I can't move forward with unforgiveness in my body. You know, and it's a timing thing, right? You can't rush these things.
That's right. And I think probably the one thing that sparked me as you talked then is forgiveness does not mean that you trust your perpetrators ever again. You still have your boundaries. It's actually your release. It's your release.
It releases you. Yeah.
It's what releases you. And that leaves them to deal with their world, their thing. That doesn't concern us anymore. That's why we don't need any vengeance. Sorry, I always keep my hands up.
look just awesome. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing so honestly. And this has been a fun conversation.
And it has
Yeah.
been a fun conversation. And I've got one more thing I want to say.
Yes.
If you're going through the heavy stuff, if there are things that you can't remember, especially if it's SRA, I recommend connecting in and talking to my friend here. And one day in the future, I will be doing that too when I've got through all of mine.
You are sharing.
I'll do it in a different way, but I love that journey process. But yeah, getting in touch. It may be a conversation, but ultimately, I would just love to see people freed from SRA and what it's done, and for every one of us who frees ourselves from it, it frees others, and it's a whole collaboration. And
Yeah.
I'm very grateful, very, very grateful for those that went ahead of me with the boldness to expose it. I actually honestly thought I was one of the only people in the world before all of that.
Yeah.
No one to talk to, nowhere to go.
And
So
look, now we have Thrive Nation and Emma Catherine and all these survivors and all these websites where you can look at the videos of many, many testimonials of many, many survivors, and you will actually find a correlation between these different trained, controlled children that have been trained in all these separate areas or met multiple areas of having their little beautiful life force controlled, and how they're getting themselves free. And so Thrive Nation on Facebook, at the moment, I would love somebody to come along and build a web website called Thrive Nation for us, where we can not have to deal with censorship. But already there's a prayer on this that if you're watching it, you found it for a reason. You can handle the information. We call it triggering, but it's actually awakening. And if you can take yourself off and release anything that it triggered, it's triggering to release it out of it's just the mud, remember? It's just the pain.
Yeah.
You just want to move it off your peace of mind. And so that's our prayer, Poppy.
Yeah, prayer, and one quick mention on trigger.
Yeah.
Because I purposely make myself get triggered to wake up to what I need to remember.
Yeah, it's happening naturally too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I see triggers as a positive thing that's trying to help us. It's just when you have the triggers when you're unsupported.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
when you've got some tools, you can support yourself. Like you're supporting yourself through the triggering now, eh?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I just actually want to have a big sigh of relief after everything that's said.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And we definitely are here to converse with you. Video, messenger calls, Zoom calls. We're ready. We've got our sleeves rolled up, and we want to be holding space for you and offering you any support we can. Obviously, we can only do what we can. Lots of love, mwah, and lots of light and shine. Thank you. Thanks, Poppy. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.